Hi, this is Moo. I'm going to read from the book Choose Freedom, Have, Be, and Do Whatever You Will or Desire by Virginia Lloyd. And this is about Lester Levenson. And this chapter, I think it's chapter 13, is specifically about his awakening experience and process and what he discovered during a 3-month period. And this was during the 3rd month, actually, what I'm going to read about. So she writes, "It was also during the 3rd month that he ran into an old adversary, one he had seen out of the corner of his eye again and again throughout his life. It had lurked nearby, always on the periphery, and he had never before been willing to meet it head on. It was the fear of death. Now, he recognized it as the basis of every single feeling he had ever had. He began to coax it out into the open, wanting to take a good look at this biggest foe of all, which had so very nearly won the battle only a few months ago. He began to lure those feelings into the open and to dissolve them, and it worked. He got to the place where, with great confidence, he laughed and laughed and laughed at this foe, which had kept a fire lit under him his entire life, so that there had not been one moment of real peace ever. This last of the monsters turned out to be, after all, only a feeling. As he dissolved the fear of death, he realized one day that his body was sound, healed. The physical impairment was corrected. He couldn't explain it to anyone how he knew. He just knew it was as surely as he knew who he was. His body was sound. By the end of the 3rd month, he had slipped into a blissful, joyous state which he could only describe as feeling like a million orgasms surging all at once through his entire body. It went on, and he realized that this feeling, although not sexual, was what he had always been looking for but never found in sex. He felt light, living for weeks with joy exploding inside him every moment. Everyone and everything became exquisitely beautiful to him. He kept looking for more things to correct, but there didn't seem to be much. Obviously, something would occur to him, but it would be gone almost before he could define it, and the joy would surge through him even more strongly. After several weeks, he began to wonder if there could be anything better beyond this joy. He was sitting in his chair in the usual position, slumped down, legs stretched out, chin touching his chest. He had the idle thought without expecting an answer, but the answer came. What was beyond this incredible, joyous state that didn't stop? He saw that it was peace, imperturbability, and he realized with certainty that if he accepted it, if he decided to move into that peace, it would never, ever go away. And he went, slipped into it so effortlessly, with just a decision to have it. He was there. Everything was still. He was in a quietness that he now knew had always been there, but drowned out by incessant noise from his accumulated, uncorrected past. In fact, it was more than quiet. It was so far beyond anything imaginable that there were no words to describe the delectable deliciousness of the tranquility. His earlier question about happiness was answered too. There were no limits to happiness, but when you have it all, every minute, it gets tiresome. Then this peace is just beyond, and all you have to do is step over the line into it. Is there anything beyond even this? He wondered. But as he asked, he knew the answer. This peace was eternal and forever, and it was the essence of every living thing. There was only one beingness, and everything was it. every person was it, but they were without awareness of this, the fact, blinded by the uncorrected past they hold on to. He saw this beingness as something like a comb. He was at the spine of the comb, and all the teeth fanned out from it, each one thinking it was separate and different from all the other teeth. And that was true, but only if you looked at it from the tooth end of the comb. Once you got back to the spine or source, you could see that it wasn't true. It was all one comb. There was no real separation, except when you sat at the tooth end. It was all in one's point of view. If that were really true, he thought, then he could tune in at any point he chose. If he were the whole comb, he could tune in with any tooth at all. And then he tells a story about, he thought about a friend in California, and he was back east, and he tuned into where that friend was, and he saw the room and the people, and he described it, and the friend freaked out. So he said he was just kidding, because he didn't want to trip other people out, because he remembered how he was narrow-minded in his thinking only a few months before, and he would have thought that it was crazy. So he goes on to say that when I started my search, I was very convinced and absolute materialist. The only thing that was real to me was that which I could see, feel, and touch. My world was as solid as concrete. Then, when these revelations came to me, that the world was just a result of my mind, that matter had no intelligence, and that our intelligence and our thinking determined all matter and everything about it. When I saw that this solidity, which I formerly had thought was only a thought, when I saw that the solidity which I formerly had was only a thought, my nice, solid, concrete foundation began to crack. A lifetime of build-up began to tumble, and my body shook and shook. I just shook for days. I shook like a nervous old person. I knew that the concrete view I'd had of the world was never going to be again, but it didn't drop away gracefully with ease. For days, I actually shook, until I think I shook the whole thing loose. Then my view was just the opposite of what it had been months previously, that the real and solid thing was not the physical world, was not even my mind, but it was something which was much greater, that my essence, the very beingness of me, was the reality, and that it had no limits, that it was eternal, and that all those former things that I used to see as me, like my body and mind, were the least of me rather than the all of me. That the all of me was my beingness. And that's from Virginia Lloyd's book about Lester Levenson called Choose Freedom. Have, be, and do whatever you will or desire. Until next time, peace and blessings.